This time on episode 353 of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., we discuss Daredevil Season 3, Episode 1, Resurrection, and Season 3, Episode 2, Please. We also discuss weekly Marvel news and your feedback.
I'm Ryan from the Dad.io podcast, a show dedicated to dorky dads everywhere. Part of the GonnaGeek network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other dad-alicious geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
You have been granted clearance by director Alfonso Mack Mackenzie. Stand by for a S.H.I.E.L.D. debriefing. All information to be discussed here is classified and may only be discussed among agents granted clearance by the S.H.I.E.L.D. director.
Now it's time for your scheduled debriefing. I'm Agent Lauren.
I'm Agent Michelle.
And I'm producer of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., SP. Welcome to Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., a Marvel Comic Universe fan show. This show is recorded on Thursday, October 8th, 2020, live from the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. studios and broadcast New York City wide via www.geeks.live. Come join our live chat as we record. Ladies, happy National Pierogi Day.
I wish I could have celebrated this, but I haven't found any place that sells pierogies near me.
I hate to suggest this, but they do sell frozen pierogies at the grocery store.
Yeah, I've had some frozen ones and they're okay, but there was this place right near where I used to live that it was called Pierogi Queen, and it was like nothing but Polish food, specifically pierogies as their showcase. And it was so good. I loved their Texas pierogies, which were like, that you could have it with like sriracha sauce on it and sausage. And they were so good. And I really, really miss it. Now I'm hungry again.
Yeah, for those that don't know what they are, it's kind of a pasta.
It's like a dumpling, stuffed dumpling.
Yeah, stuffed dumpling. That's a good descriptor of it. My brother-in-law, who is Canadian, actually he's naturalized American citizen now, but he is Canadian. He's from Canada. His mother still lives in Canada. Their staple food, their like special food. One they call cabin spaghetti, and they called it even before any of them had a cabin or anything. So that's just what they had, cabin spaghetti. The other is pierogies. So I've been treated to some really cool pierogies, and there are, like you said, there's many different types. You can get them with cabbage filling. You can get them with mashed potato filling. You can get them with potatoes and cheese filling. So there's a lot of stuff that can fit in there, and probably not the healthiest stuff, but it tastes so good.
Yeah. Do yourself a favor. Try a pierogi.
Michelle, have you ever tried pierogies?
Yes, I used to live in Chicago. So, yes. The answer to that is just yes.
Okay.
Next time we're at Gen Con together, there's a really good pierogi food truck that comes through.
Oh, you remember food trucks?
Do you remember conventions? I thought it was really interesting. I got an email today, with PAX going, yeah, we've officially canceled PAX Unplugged. And we're just all like, no, duh. Like, who was even planning on going? We knew it was canceled. Like,
at this point, cancellations are just in it for hotel reservations and
I know that there's like certain conditions that a lot of them have to go through of like, the state has to declare it. Otherwise, they won't get their deposits back. And conventions already run at like a knife's edge of profitability.
On the plus side, we've actually had some virtual conventions this year with a lot of virtual panels that were made available to everyone, which was a nice change of pace this year, like San Diego Comic-Con and a few others. So
yeah, New York City Comic-Con Online, I think, just started today. The Expanse panel was earlier, and it was fantastic.
Can't wait to go see it. Talking about The Expanse, we have a show to get to on Marvel stuff, so let's get to it. Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a fan-based podcast on the Marvel Cinematic and comic book universes.
Because of Catholic guilt.
If you'd like to talk to us about the overwhelming amount of Catholic guilt, you can visit our website at legendsofshield.com.
You can tell us your stories about Catholic guilt at our voicemail, 844-THE-BUS-1. That's 844-843-2871.
You can share your guilt in a lengthy Facebook post by visiting our Facebook page, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Podcast.
You can share your guilt in a much smaller post on our Twitter at Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D.
You can see our beautiful faces on YouTube and feel no guilt at all at youtube.com/GonnaGeek.
You can tell your Amazon device to enable Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. skill.
You can join our Discord server at GonnaGeek.com/Discord.
And remember, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a proud member of the GonnaGeek.com network.
Agent Haley contacted us a few days ago. She can't be with us. She's with family right now. And I just want to say our thoughts are with her and her family right now. We're hopefully going to get Haley back maybe next week or the week after, but she is not able to be with us tonight. Ladies, are you ready to talk some Daredevil?
Sure.
Daredevil Season 3, and the final season as far as we know it, was published to Netflix on October 19th, 2018, which is less than 2 years ago. I'm getting excited. We're getting closer and closer to the under 2 years with all these. Lauren, why don't you run down the creative team? Lauren, why don't you run down the creative team of the first episode that we watched for tonight called Resurrection?
Okay, well, first off, we have director Marc, and I'm very sorry for mispronunciation. It's either Jobst or Jobst, who has 30 directing credits starting in 2000, including 5 of Belonging, 5 of Casualty, 2 of Criminal Justice, 2 of Upstairs, Downstairs, 2 of Silk, 1 of Hannibal, 1 of Black Sails, and 1 of The Punisher. Also, 1 of The Runaways, 2 of Luke Cage, 2 of Daredevil, 2 of Berlin Station, 2 of The Witcher, and 2 of Jupiter's Legacy. The episode was written by Erik Oleson, who has 14 writing credits starting in 2002, with 1 of Andromeda, 2 of Jack and Bobby, 3 of Chase, 4 of Unforgettable, 2 of Crisis, 4 of Arrow, 3 of The Man in the High Castle, 3 of Daredevil, and 1 of Carnival Row.
Did y'all finish Man in the High Castle? Did you watch Man in the High Castle?
I can't watch anything with Nazis lately. It's just too much.
I could see that. I think Man in the High Castle came out before the equation came out between Nazis and what's going on in the political universe today in the United States. But I watched it and I was pleasantly surprised at the science fiction part of it. I just thought it was, what do they call it? Historical fiction, but it was actually science fiction. So I did appreciate that. I have not completed my watch of everything. I think I got through season 3 and maybe there was a last season 4, or I got through season 2 and there was a last season 3. Anyway, it was pretty well done for Prime, one of their first really good science fiction shows that they had on Prime. And as far as Marc Jobst, I don't know how to pronounce it. I've heard it Jobst before. We've had him on the podcast. We have talked about his work on the podcast before. With everything that he's done, and every single episode that he's done has been really cool. So I'm glad that they started the season off with him. Michelle, do you want to run down the creative team to the second episode, please, tonight?
Sure. This episode was directed by Lukas Ettlin. Has 12 directing credits starting in 2012, including 1 Power, 5 of Black Sails, 2 of The Arrangement, 1 Last Ship, 1 Taken, 1 Krypton, 1 Daredevil, 2 Counterpart, and 2 Barkskins. Written by Jim Dunn, has 9 writing credits starting in 2004, including 2 of The Dead Zone, 2 Crisis, 11 Haven, 2 Hand of God, and 2 Daredevil.
Now, Michelle, I believe you watched all of Haven. I think you did with me. Was that you that watched all of Haven? Yeah.
Yes.
So I got suckered in and I watched, I think it was 5 seasons.
Yes.
Yeah. Suckered in would be the term I would use for me. I did complete the series. It was something to watch on TV. It is not the greatest thing on TV, in my opinion, but what was your thoughts on it?
It had potential, and then I really thought they could be a little bit more consistent after season 3. I mean, I got the barn, but they just changed the main character so much. And it's just, you didn't need to force the romance and having it be your kid and so much time travel. And it didn't really, yeah, just skip it. It's a skip. Rewatch Eureka or something like that.
I think it suffered from the typical sci-fi lack of, and by sci-fi I mean skiffy, the channel skiffy, the lack of budget. I don't remember if it was actually a skiffy production or if it was another production house that came in, but I think once you got beyond season 1, it just didn't have the same money available, and so it started suffering for that. And as a lot of other shows on skiffy went that way, which is why I don't think I checked. I think a few months ago, and Lauren, you might be able to check me on this, maybe Michelle. I don't think there's really anything on skiffy anymore that's worth watching.
Wynonna Earp.
Isn't that in its last season or something like that?
I don't know if it's yeah, I think because it was canceled, then the fans rallied, they uncanceled it, and yeah, I think it's just finished. I'm 2 seasons behind because I had been binging it, but then I was in the middle of a move and just all sorts of stuff. But yeah, they seem to have canceled all of their good shows and their shows with promise, like Vagrant Queen was at like a death time slot and canceled. Dark Matter kept moving it around, canceled. I've heard Van Helsing is kind of fun. I don't know if it's still on.
Yeah, the last straw that I had was skiffy. I think we talked about it before on the show, was when they canceled Dark Matter and they kept Killjoys, and I think they should have kept Dark Matter over Killjoys, but they didn't because of the production houses. Killjoys was an in-house production, Dark Matter wasn't, so they went with the in-house production there. And there's a lot of fans to Killjoys. I just didn't think it was the hard-hitting sci-fi space opera that Dark Matter was, which is what I like. But in any event, Jim Dunn had 11 episodes of Haven, probably very integral. I didn't check and see if he was an executive producer or anything on that. So we have a lot of experience in these 2 episodes, which is great. So we're going to start talking about these episodes like we do always, and we're going to equate the titles of the episode to the themes of the episode. And Lauren, I'm going to start with you. Resurrection, what do we got there?
Well, obviously, Matt Murdock came back 3 days after dying, so... Well, it is kind of, figurative and literal. Everyone's like, oh, Matt's dead, but he's really alive. And also we see him at the start of the episode at his lowest point. He's been partially deafened. He's just beat to hell. Elektra's dead. He ends up in this... Basically, he's hiding out at a church, and he's mad at everyone. He's mad at God. And he starts to pull himself out of that by the end of the episode. So again, metaphorical and literal resurrection.
So if we take the biblical analogy here, it was just, go historical. We'll treat the Bible like a historical document right here. So when there was a famous resurrection in the Bible, and Jesus was resurrected after 3 days, then he came back, but then he left shortly thereafter. So I think this is just an omen that everything was going to get canceled in the Defenders universe because it was going to be done, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could look at it that way.
Okay. Firing on all 2 cylinders today. This is good. Michelle, do you have anything to add on that?
Not really. It's pretty much... Yeah, it's pretty much clear cut there.
All right, so since you're so clear-cut on Resurrection, why don't you start, Michelle, on the theme for the episode titled, please?
Well, there's a lot, Matt talks about how he thought he heard the prayers from everybody, and he thought people would go, please God, help me with this. And he thought by hearing people's prayers, he was helping them. And then you have, I think his name's Nadim. Sorry, first one we're talking about here. Yes, Nadim is like, please let me be on Fisk's case. Let me be the head of it. And then at the end, you've got Fisk basically going, please give me protection. And basically at the end, please don't kill me. I mean, he doesn't say it, but that expression on his face is definitely, everyone's dead around me. Please don't kill me.
That's interesting about the prayer thing. So my favorite baseball superhero movie, For Love of the Game, and we can go into all the reasons why it's actually a superhero movie, but let's just say for the sake of argument that it's a superhero movie. In it, Kevin Costner, who has this superpower of concentration to be able to pitch this perfect game, right? So he has this superpower going on where he clears the mechanism and everything. At the end of the movie, he's hurt his arm. He's pitching the last inning that he'll ever pitch, that sort of thing. And he doesn't have anything left, but he needs to throw a pitch. So he starts talking to God. I won't say praying, but he's starting talking to God. And he said, I've always thought it was silly to ask for your help over winning a baseball game when you have so many other things to deal with. But if you could just make this pain in my arm go away for an hour or half an hour or whatever he said, 20 minutes, I think is what he said, that would be great. So that reminded me, this scene in Daredevil kind of reminded me of that. And there's many other examples of that throughout television and movies and stuff like that. But it was pretty powerful the way they portrayed it, because it seemed like a bunch of things that God was not going to be able to help, sort of thing. And these people were just desperate and they were reaching out to God. And it fit into Matt's motif of not wanting to go the way of the church, basically. Here, he refuses to take communion. He refuses to be in mass, and he wants to continue with his Daredevil motif. And he has this give and go with Sister Maggie. Can we call her Sister Maggie?
Yeah.
Is that which let's call her Sister Maggie. He's got this give and go with Sister Maggie throughout the entire thing. So yeah, the whole please thing was pretty much a moniker for all of that. I will say before we get into everything that it was really good to hear and see the Daredevil intro theme and the graphics. I actually watched it for the first episode. I skipped it for the second episode because I was running out of time. It was really cool to see that again. And this is where this Defenders universe all started, was that graphics.
Yeah, it did feel kind of like coming home. I have so much to say about Matt in these two episodes. I don't know about either of y'all. I grew up Catholic, very Catholic, Mexi Catholic. And I also have been dealing with I want to say late in life disability, but it all started when I was 18, which I'm comparatively young. So I have a whole lot to say about like faith and grief and stuff, but I can get to that later. Just letting you know it's coming, though.
I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Lauren. There's a lot to talk about in Matt's life here, because in the two episodes, there's kind of a dual thing. First, there's the survival story. We have to get the fact that he actually survived Midland Circle and how he did it and stuff like that. And not only that, but after he got out, his bid to survive just to live sort of thing. And then it kind of transitions into a comeback story. So there's really two different stages within these two episodes of what's going on. You might say that there's a third stage when he actually starts becoming Daredevil again, but he's not all there yet. I don't know if he'll ever be there again. He said he is not, basically not as young as he used to be, or didn't have the capabilities that he used to have. So you might want to say there's a third part in there, but I'm just going to keep it to two parts there. Also, did you guys watch the recap before you started watching season 1, episode 1? Did you see Claire in those and go, oh, it would be so cool to see her in this one?
I'm kind of soured on Rosario Dawson these days for the transphobia allegations.
And it's not the first time you mentioned it on here, but Claire as a character, she will be sorely missed.
Yeah, the character did add a lot. Just that kind of human connection to these extraordinary people.
I guess before we get to talking about Matt, let's talk about some of the other characters. So Michelle, Karen, you're a big Karen fan, and she has an interesting trip in these two episodes, an interesting story. How do you think she's holding up?
She's the keeper of the faith. She's the one that's trying to keep the light on. Literally, we learned she's paying Matt's rent and bills in order to have Matt a place to come home to. She's still doing her reporter bit, which is really good. I like the interaction with her in the editor, where the editor is just, make sure you're working the story and the story's not working you. And we see her with her own ability to make a human connection when she goes questions the woman in the hospital, and then she gets that tidbit that perhaps Matt's alive because of the guy in the mask saved him and such.
Yeah, she really, if we are going biblical with Daredevil, it's hard not to. She is very much the Mary Magdalene here. And Foggy is the doubting Thomas who isn't going to believe until he gets to, poke Matt in the face.
I like that Marcy was brought up in the second episode. I have no idea if we're going to see Marcy or not. I didn't spoil myself by looking at IMDb. By the way, I have only seen the first 2 episodes of Daredevil season 3. I've not seen anything more, and I believe you 2 ladies are the same way, right?
Yep.
So we're not going to spoil anything else in season 3 because we simply don't know. As we're watching through here, we've been kind of waiting for this moment to podcast about it. But Karen, in the second episode, she goes to Foggy's parents' deli to find him. I don't know if she knew he was going to be there or not. And then he says, "Oh, thanks for coming. And you're not going to bring up any questions about whether I'm still with Marcy or not."
Yeah, it's this whole implication of Foggy is not in a good place mentally. The last, for the 2 episodes, that is kind of, if you can start off almost everybody at their lowest point at the beginning of this season, this is his lowest point. It's, yeah, he's a successful lawyer. He's working for one of the best firms in the city, but his best friend is dead. He goes home. His mom is trying to get him to quit and come and run the deli. His brother, despite the fact that he's the one who wanted to run the deli, is being overlooked by their parents. His dad is, we're finding out, he's getting older. He's not as good as he used to be. And then to top it all off, Karen comes and he's like, "Oh, great. And now people are going to say I'm cheating on my girlfriend because an attractive woman, that I used to hang out with all the time showed up." So it's just like one more thing that he doesn't want to deal with. Oh, and then she's talking about, "Hey, guess what? The best friend that you think is that it's, is dead. Maybe he's not dead." And that hurts. If you've ever lost anyone really close to you, just the thought that, oh, but what if they're not dead? You want to think it, but, and then the fact that they didn't find a body. Yeah, I don't even.
A lot of analogies there to 9/11 with Midland Circle, and you had the whole building come down, and there was some people that they didn't recover anything from, or that they recovered something, but they weren't able to identify it. So you really just don't know in that situation. Also, the MH370 aircraft was never found. There's several aircraft like that.
Oh yeah, no, there's so many disasters where bad things happen to people's bodies and there's not enough of them to identify, or kidnapping cases, or presumed victims of serial killers, or people who just vanished, and you never know. Your mind is always trying to say maybe the possibilities out there.
So I don't blame Foggy too much because that was the world of real, even though they were surrounded by supernatural stuff at the time. But also, one last thing before we start talking about Matt is this introduction of this new character, Special Agent Ray Nadeem. I love the introduction because it's such a fake out. It's like he's part of this underground criminal activity or something like that because, his credit cards are bad. So you're thinking, oh, he's going to go rob a bank or something like that. And then he gets out the gun in the morning. Although what should have tipped me off if it was from a gun safe. A criminal's not going to necessarily have a gun safe. And then he's walking in and you think he is going to do something like rob a bank. And it turns out he works for the FBI. I thought that was a great feint to introduce the character.
We also have a little bit of a Breaking Bad thing going on there. We find out that the reason that his credit is shot is because he was paying for, is it his sister or his sister-in-law?
Sister-in-law.
Okay. He was paying for her cancer treatment. And they're having a party because she's in remission. She's cancer-free. And that's great. But again, it's the reality of a lot of people in the United States is you have a medical crisis and you're broke. I have good insurance and we're still dealing with a lot of medical bills right now.
Yeah, it's expensive to be poor. This is part of it. And Nadim is just, and the whole thing about like, can credit actually interfere with your job? Yes, it can. So this is not like some sort of weird made up thing. This actually happens to real people all the time. And it's that awful circle of, well, you're not getting a promotion because of your bad credit score. And then it's like, but I need the promotion to make the money to pay off the things to increase my credit score, but you're not giving. And it's just the one thing needs to happen before the other thing. And it's really awful.
Yep.
So that character introduction was great. And then we also go back to Fisk in prison, and that kind of sets up these two episodes. So we got Fisk in prison. We'll talk about him in a second. We got Special Agent Nadim. We have the church. We have Karen and Foggy, excuse me. And we have Matt coming back. So that kind of sets up what's going on here.
When we first see Fisk and we have this like beautiful thing. Did either of y'all ever watch Hannibal?
Yes.
The movie or the TV show?
The TV series.
No.
Because this was just bringing me back to Hannibal. You have the classical music. You have the lovingly prepared food. And then we see the reality of the situation, which is he's in a prison cell. It's gross prison food. Everyone's yelling. He's having a bad time.
And did like the white wall. I mean, they brought back the white wall, so that was cool. And his love for Vanessa, and again, I don't know if we're going to see Vanessa at all in the season or not, but the fact that he loves Vanessa and he will do anything to bring Vanessa back, including rat on his other fellow criminals and subject himself to everything that it's entitled with being a snitch. I thought that was a calculated move on his part to get eventually released. I don't think it is, because when the attack finally came, when he was being moved, he thought it was going to be it. He thought it was going to be the end. And when he finally came out of the car, he came out of the car with his hands up, like, don't shoot sort of thing. So this was not the I'm sure of myself of what's going on fist. This was I am doing everything for Vanessa because she is my everything. And it wasn't working out for him.
Yeah, at first I thought, oh, they're breaking him out. But then, yeah, seeing him scared was kind of novel. I mean, we've seen him through the 2 seasons that he's been in. We've seen him, yeah, kind of worried, but still in control. But I don't think we've ever seen him outright scared, really.
Yeah, it's Fisk. And it's set up. So now let's talk about Murdoch. So he is surviving. He went out with the water into the sewer system, I guess, and he got thrown out by the river. I think that's the inference of what happened there.
Yep.
We don't know what happened with Elektra, though.
Exactly.
She's dead, or is she?
It's comic books. When you don't have a body, you can bring them back. That's how it works.
Even if you have a body, let's face it, it's 50-50.
Been known to happen before. Yep, absolutely. And he ends up wanting to go to Father Lantham. Lantham. How do you pronounce his last name? Does anybody know? Does anybody remember? It's spelled Lantom. So I think it's Lantham. Yeah. So he asked Father Lantham at the church, and he goes there. Something's going on with Sister Maggie, though. I think it's more than just I'm taking care of this orphan that used to be here.
Yeah, I've read the comics. I know what's up with her.
All right. So what is the comic background of Sister Maggie?
I don't want to say because it's a spoiler.
Dang it. I was hoping to slip one in there.
But if you have read the comics, you also know what's up with her. I really, really, really love their... Like, she's very prickly and he's very angry. So it's this very... Okay, when you're hurt that badly, when your life has changed that badly, the last thing you want is pity. And I guess that would go doubly so for him because he already has one disability. And with him, it was like, oh, okay, even that's not so bad because, I have these other super senses and I'm a ninja and, everything's pretty great. I probably get by better than a lot of my sighted friends. But now that's kind of been taken from him again since he's been partially deafened and everything. He really, really, really doesn't want that pity. And she is not giving him pity at all. She's kind of giving as good as every time he lashes out, she kind of absorbs it and throws it back at him. So there's this weird kind of respect there.
She says a line that I will always respect. So you have heard of me. And that was great. Also, she is subjected to, and I'll just call it, I know it wasn't complete, but a quasi Matt shirtless scene changing his bandage.
We got oozing wounds.
Yeah, oozing chest wounds, or gut wound in this case. And I don't know really what to call her. Confidant, trainer, counselor, healer, all of the above. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm really intrigued with her, and I hope that we get more of her as the series goes on. I doubt we just saw her for 2 episodes and that was it. As a matter of fact, I think Matt's still planning on living in the basement of the church in the laundry room for now.
Well, everyone else thinks he's dead, so. I'm not sure how familiar y'all are with the role of nuns in the church.
Oh, since you gave your background before, I'll just give my background. My great uncle was a bishop, so I'm pretty familiar. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So for those who don't know, the history of nuns in the Catholic Church is a really interesting one, in my opinion, because you go back to like the Middle Ages and stuff, and this was where women would go if, first of all, to claim sanctuary, to get out of arranged marriages they didn't want to be in. It was kind of a place to have some position of power, to have some position of education. The nuns, you traditionally think of Catholic nuns as the ones who teach in schools, which, yeah, a lot of them still do. There are some orders that still do that. They aren't as, I would say, respected as priests. They don't have a lot of the same duties because gender roles in the Catholic Church are still not great. But nuns don't tend to be very meek. It takes a certain kind of person, whether, nun, priest, whatever, to be convinced that they are hearing the call of God to go in and do a duty. And so you get a lot of these very interesting, a lot of them very strong-willed people. My grandpa's sister was a nun. We used to live by the little convent there in my hometown. They taught at my sister's school. I was never taught by a nun because I burned all the bridges at the Catholic school that I went to in preschool. So I had to leave.
I can only assume it's literally.
I didn't actually set any fires, but they were not fond of me.
The high school that I went to was a Catholic high school. My freshman year, it was an all-boys school. The only reason I went there is I knew that they were going to merge with the all-girls school that was across the street my sophomore year. So I did go to an all-boys school for a year. My sophomore year, we merged, and the Christian brothers that taught the boys were merged with the nuns that taught the girls. And it was an interesting couple of years, and I actually did witness nuns using rulers and paddles.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a stereotype for a reason.
Yeah, I didn't want to mess with the nuns. It didn't happen. And they had this inherent hatred towards all the boys there because they didn't want to merge with an all-boys school. So it wasn't us in particular. It was just all teenage boys everywhere that they didn't like. So we were just the brunt of their anger.
Yeah, the gender roles in the church, also a very interesting, complicated thing. Yeah, and that's not even like, oh, all of them are like, you go by, like I said, I grew up more Mexican Catholic, which is a very, very kind of more traditionalist, whereas my best friend who also grew up Catholic, they're a lot more liberal. Like they actually had sex education in school, that sort of thing.
It was state mandated in my case. But anyway, Michelle, you have been quiet for a while. I want your thoughts on Sister Maggie.
I think she's very interesting. I too don't want to say much because I don't know if this season's going to follow the comic book or not. And yeah, I don't know really what else to say because I'm in the same boat as Lauren because we both know stuff, and it's like, are they going to go there or not? And I think because of that, we don't want to talk too much about certain things.
Yeah, I'm 99% sure they're going that way.
I hope so.
Especially given what she said in episode 2.
I loved her enjoyment of boxing. She was just all in it. She was like, oh, boxing. Oh, yeah. So they set this boxing ring up in the laundry room of the basement of a church with like these religious statues as the 4 corner posts. I was like, of all the things. And then I thought back to my high school education, Catholic school. I was like, yeah, actually, I could see this happening. We didn't have a room like that in my high school, but I could see it happening.
There's this weird thing that happens when you're kind of in the presence of religious stuff every day. It's that whole like, not familiarity breeds, if not contempt, practicality.
You got to live around it.
Yeah. I've heard of this from, Catholics, evangelicals, the Muslims I know, the Jews that I know. And it's the funniest stories that you hear from people who went to Catholic schools inevitably have to do with something weird that the Jesuits or the nuns or the Catholic brothers or the lay brothers or whoever you get to teach. There's always something weird they do, and it kind of like shorts your brain out a little. But it's because, you're around it so often, it just becomes a matter of, okay, well, I need to get stuff done.
Yeah, and talking about getting stuff done, we have a podcast to do here. So Matt, we'll go to his comeback phase, and he's still healing, very much so. His body is nowhere near healed. He's still spitting out blood. His swelling in his ear hasn't gone down. I don't know if it ever will. But he discovers a new way to use his powers, doesn't he, Michelle?
Yes, the power of touch. He gets spidey senses through his hands. I'm sorry. It's just every time he would touch something, it just reminded me of Spider-Man for some reason.
It reminded me of Toph from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, the feet moment. But he ended up using his hands more. So because he ended up focusing on his hands and not his feet, I eventually went to Spider-Man. But if he stuck to the feet, like if all of a sudden he was running around barefoot, so tough. That would be so tough.
So he reached out and he touched the mirror, and his hand was on the mirror, and he started feeling the vibrations. And you know what my thought was still to this day in October of 2020 was the last season of Flash, which has not concluded yet. I mean, the season is done of Flash, but they haven't concluded it because they had their filming cut short because of the pandemic. But my thoughts went to, I wonder if he's going to get sucked into that alternate universe behind the mirror. That's what I thought.
That's how we find out about the Marvel multiverse.
Through Daredevil and his shoeless, gloveless touch.
Yeah, I was having a lot of feelings watching this. Like I said, been dealing with various injuries, disabilities, stuff since I was 18. And I recently had to have back surgery. So I've been feeling great, and that's been leading me to push myself too hard. So I'm back to taking pain pills and walking with a cane. So watching Matt have that, oh my gosh, I can do anything. Oh no, I can't. It really hit home.
I felt for Matt. I really did, because wants to be Daredevil so bad, and he just can't be the Daredevil that he used to be. Not to say that he can't be Daredevil again. He's kind of on that path. He's just out in the streets helping people for the first time, and he ends up in this fight on the street with a herbal dry cleaner gang, which I'm sure is code for something in New York City. But anyway, he gets into this fight with them, and he kind of saves a couple of people in the process. Father and his adult daughter, socialite, I believe is what she's termed. And I didn't think for 1 second that this wasn't going to come back. I always knew that this fight was important, that it would drag Matt back into it on his quest to get Wilson Fisk or whatever. And also, I didn't see it right away, but obviously Karen got hooked up into it, and I can only imagine Foggy's going to get hooked back into it somehow. So we've got the places, the pieces on the board that are shifting around. We didn't get just a fight in the middle of nowhere for nothing for Daredevil, which the fights, by the way, it's good to see the fights again, the fight choreography, because Charlie Cox sure can throw some punches.
Yeah.
When he finally goes after the dry cleaners, by the way, he puts up two of the guys on the fence on a cage, basically in the basement, and he's double punching both of them at the same time. Like he'd punch one, and the guy would rebound. He'd punch the other with crossing fists. It was very pummeling. It was very Daredevil, and I'm glad they didn't overdo it. Obviously, Daredevil's hurt, but it's good to see them progressing to see intense fights, but it doesn't dominate. Like the whole hallway fight that was in season 1 of Daredevil, that was like a 12-minute fight or something like that. We didn't get anything that long this time.
Yeah. Something else that I really, really, really liked. We see Matt having a crisis of faith. We hear him talking to Sister Maggie about the biblical story of Job. If you've ever read the story of Job, it's a bet between God and the devil of, okay, if I make this guy who loves me and his life is great, if I make his life miserable, God's like, I bet he's not going to curse me. And the devil's like, I bet you he's going to curse you. And the whole story is just the worst things happening to Job, like, Matt says on the show. And he's right now feeling very Job-like. He's dedicated his life to, helping and doing the right thing and making people feel better. And not only did his closure with Fisk wasn't what he thought it would be. He didn't die. I mean, usually it's like, okay, the hero completes his mission and dies. He's not dead. And not only is he not dead, but he's all busted up. So he can't even go on being, the Daredevil that he was before. So he's in a really bad place. My parents, anytime I would feel bad as a kid, anytime I'd feel sick or in pain, they were always telling me, oh, offer it up to God. And that's not really the kind of thing that maybe you want or need to hear when you're in that mental place, that physical place, that emotional place. And we talked before, he's kind of going tete-a-tete with Sister Maggie because she's still holding on to her faith. Even though he's like, well, what if you couldn't, you have this calling. And if you couldn't do that calling anymore, what would you do? She's like, well, you find something else. And he's like, it's not that simple. This is like literally all I've been trained to do, even though he's also a lawyer. Come on. There's other ways to help people. But then, yeah, like we say, he finds a workaround. And it's not going great for him so far, but it is that little shred of hope. He's still not all the way back. Like we said, he's not going to church. He's not taking communion. He's having a crisis of faith. Lots of us have been there. Whatever he comes out thinking, because it's Matt, because we know it's Matt, he's probably going to come back around. But whatever happens when you are in a situation where you are having a crisis of faith, a crisis of identity, you don't tend to come out the same person on the other side. So that's what has me the most excited about this season.
Some movement forward with the characters. One last thing that I wanted to mention in this episode, and since we just watched Luke Cage and we didn't have Iron Fist in the middle, it's even more important. We got Ben Donovan back. You know, he's been in both Daredevil and Luke Cage before, but coming off of the last season of Luke Cage right into this, and you see Ben Donovan as Fist's lawyer again, you're like, okay. And he knows when he's dealing with his criminal clientele, he knows when to push and when not to push. So he comes in and they tell him that, unfortunately, we can't get Vanessa back in because of all the legal stuff. And Fisk tells his lawyers, which is Ben Donovan, to leave. Ben Donovan doesn't bring up anything else, any actionable items for his client. He doesn't say, we'll work on it or anything. He shuts up and he leaves. Ben's not dumb, as we saw in last season of Luke Cage.
We also saw a returning face in Turk Barrett at the very beginning of the episode.
Turk ties the whole universe together. I think there's been like
the dude's rug.
Yeah, it ties the whole thing together. I think there's been 1 or 2 seasons that he has not been in, but like even Luke Cage.
I thought he's been in every season, but it might only be just one episode.
No, I think there's been 1 or 2 seasons that he hasn't been in, but he's been in at least one episode in all the rest of them. Michelle, you got anything to say as we're wrapping up here?
Matt's a jerk. I know he's having this crisis of faith and he's going through the stages of grief, but Foggy brought you the suit. And the fact that he's doing this whole, like, I'm not mad anymore, I'm just Daredevil, like there is no, there is no, there's only Zool here. There's no one else. Like, that's okay. But you're letting your best friend think you're dead for no reason whatsoever. That's a bit much, considering what Foggy went through during the Defenders. That's just something that is not, that's not really sitting well with me. So right now I'm just like, Matt, jerk is not the word I really want to use, but this is a clean podcast. So I have to settle on jerk.
He's a real duck, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt's going through a lot of stuff and nothing has changed. Matter of fact, even the flashback, the whole thing with I have to do this Daredevil thing and he's pushing other people away from him along the way. They set it up in the flashbacks.
Again, that's the problem with somebody who has just this unshakable faith in something. Sometimes it makes them real jerks to be around.
At the end, I think Special Agent Nadeem is dead or severely injured, and there was an FBI guy that came to the rescue of the convoy, some guy that I don't remember seeing before, was not introduced. We saw his face, so I'm hoping to see more of him next time. He's one heck of a shot. He took out an entire Albanian hit team with automatic weapons and grenades and explosives and stuff with just his handgun and knives.
Gee.
Yeah, do you think we could say he's a bit of a bullseye?
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah, you think? Gee, I wonder who that is.
I remembered the spoilers on the fact that Bullseye was going to be in season 3. And yeah, I was just going to leave that out for our audience, but okay, we'll go there.
I didn't say a name. I just said he was a really good shot.
He is. Also must have really good bullets to go through protective armor like he did.
Maybe they're Judas bullets.
Yeah.
Hammer tech.
Hashtag it's all connected.
Not quite, but okay, we'll go with it. Which you can find at #itsallconnected.com. That's all I got for these 2 episodes, ladies. Anything else before we close it up?
No.
All right. Next time we'll be talking about the next 2 Daredevil episodes, season 3, episode 3, No Good Deed, and season 3, episode 4, Blindsided. And we have some news.
We have some casting news about Benedict Cumberbatch and Spider-Man.
So apparently, as of today, the news dropped that Doctor Strange is coming to Spider-Man 3, and apparently in sort of the Tony Stark mentor role, which I'm not sure what I think about that, but I don't know. We'll see. I've seen they're also speculating this could explain how we're getting Jamie Foxx Electro, because as you may or may not remember, because it's been a hell of a year, Doctor Strange 2 is called Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So does this mean that he's going to slip in from an alternate dimension? Does this mean that he's our or that dimension's version of Electro? We did hear that the appearance is going to be different. He's not going to be like bright electric blue like he was in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And also, hopefully we'll have more news about that coming out soon, because both Spider-Man 3 and Doctor Strange 2 are due to start shooting this month. Spider-Man in Atlanta and Doctor Strange 2 in London. So we'll see.
I sure hope both these films fare better than the Sparkly Batman film did when Sparkly Batman himself was diagnosed with COVID. Seriously, I do. I hope that they're not interrupted with a main character getting diagnosed with COVID and then shutting down production. I really want to see these movies come out at a reasonable pace.
Oh, yeah, so do I. But the way that this all goes, and with that number of people, I mean, even if you're keeping it to a minimum number of people, there's a lot of people on a movie set, and you can't, like, it's kind of impossible to keep everyone in a bubble. So I'm betting we're going to hear about various COVID cases popping through and shutting down productions in any movie that's in production right now. Any movie, any show.
Yeah, it really depends on how much they keep to the bubbles, because most production companies do institute a bubble for most of the actors and the production crew, and usually it's the stars that are allotted not to be part of that bubble. But in Sparkly Batman's case, he was the one who was diagnosed with COVID, so obviously wasn't adhering to the same bubble mentality as everybody else. And I realize you can get COVID even by adhering to everything, but as we're seeing with the NFL, I think some of these people just don't take things seriously. So anyway, I do hope that the filming does not get halted for any reason, because it's a major expense right now for studios that haven't had any income for the past year, and it would really hurt them. Also, I want to remind everybody, it was a year ago that we were talking about the whole Sony Marvel thing with Tom Holland not being part of the MCU and him imploring and pleading with Sony to make a deal with Marvel, and him doing that has enabled Benedict Cumberbatch to be part of Spider-Man and vice versa. So I think it was really to the benefit of Tom Holland himself by doing this, but we all benefit from it. And what we're seeing now with these two movies is specifically because of the deal that was made 1 year ago.
Yeah, and we should have more news out hopefully next week, because like I said earlier, New York Comic Con online is happening. I know we're having at least 2 Marvel panels there from MODOK and Hellstrom. And Hellstrom, of course, premieres, I think, next week. So we'll see.
Yep. All right, let's get on to some feedback.
We have one bit of feedback on Twitter this week that I thought I'd highlight. Our friend at Adonagirl in a thread about, Elizabeth Henstridge, who played our dear beloved Gemma Simmons, had a YouTube channel over the past season where, you know, she and some people, some friends, some castmates would kind of talk. They would live watch the show, talk behind the scenes stuff. And now she's turning it into a podcast where she, her friends, her coworkers, etc., are going back to season 1 and doing their own watch through. So Adonagirl linked it and is explaining, Elizabeth Henstridge did watch-alongs on her YouTube channel. Now that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is over, she started back at the beginning of the series. She's now turning it into a podcast. Her YouTube eps often have cast and crew members on them. and she has the podcast artwork and everything. So if you, like I'm sure all of us here are, missing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., once you're done listening to our recaps, why don't you go listen to Simmons's recaps and discussions?
At which you can lobby to her to be in more Hallmark holiday films in the future.
Yeah, special request just from SP.
Ooh, you know what I think would be great if Ward and Henstridge ended up in the same movie, because they've both done Hallmark holiday films. I think they both should be in the same film.
I want to see her on Great British Bake Off. I don't know if she can bake. I'm just sure she'd be fun.
Michelle, where would you like to see Elizabeth Henstridge other than her podcast on YouTube?
Let's see. Season 8 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1 of Agents of S.W.O.R.D. That would be nice.
Or whatever they call it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, if they do, we're already postured to make that pivot, by the way. We're good to go. Leave that for a spoiler for if it indeed happens. All right, so that's it for the feedback for the week. Thank you, everybody, for getting in touch with us over the last few weeks. And I feel the need to take my clothes to an herbal cleaner and get a flyer and then pass it on to my friends on the way out. What do you guys think?
Sure.
We can do that.
Okay, here we go. It's October 2020. Thank you, everybody, for listening and keeping up with us in 2020 as we get through the rest of this pandemic by watching shows that came out 2 years ago.
Thank you all for joining us in this godforsaken year. Thank you to everybody who gets a hold of us, who tweets at us, who sends us news, who comments on the YouTube, and just whatever lets us know that you're listening. We really love that. We appreciate it. We also get a lot of enjoyment from that helps boost us through this horrible, horrible year. So thank you. Thank you so very, very much.
I'm going to take a little personal thing and wish my mom a happy birthday because it is her birthday today.
Woo-hoo!
Happy birthday, Michelle's mom.
Happy birthday, Michelle's mom.
I know I do show notes and I almost wanted to do happy Michelle's mom birthday thing, but I thought that would be too much and I would just do it now. So I just, my mom is great and we do live together and, she just, oh, you're doing your thing. And it's like, yes. So you have to understand that sometimes we have family members who are supportive of this hobby. They don't understand what it is. My mom just smiles and nods her head when I talk about like gaming or this or whatever. And when she talks about football, I smile and nod in return. So, it's a give and take, it's how it's supposed to be. But yes, so happy birthday to my mom.
Happy birthday, Michelle's mom. Enjoy the games this weekend.
Michelle's mom has been on the podcast before. De facto, we used to have a segment of what Michelle's mom thought of the episode that she was watching. So I have to ask you, Michelle, has she been watching Daredevil with you?
No, I have to ask her if she's seen it and everything. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, if she has, we'll bring back the Michelle's mom segment because it's been a while since we heard from her.
I know.
Okay. Well, happy birthday to your mom. And until next time, I'm director of the show, SP.
I'm Agent Lauren.
And I'm Agent Michelle.
See everybody next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. If you want to leave us feedback, go to GonnaGeek.com and you will find all our contact information and other shows. You can also visit legendsofshield.com where you'll find our complete archive of podcasts. The music heard on this podcast is by Kevin MacLeod, found at incompetech.com, and also artists on pond5.com and audiojungle.net. The opinions heard on this podcast are those of the individual hosts and do not represent Stargate Pioneer Productions, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., or GonnaGeek. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the property of the Disney Corporation. Marvel Studios, and ABC. No infringement is intended. Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is copyright 2013 through 2020.